course, my guest this afternoon is a man that you know, who he has been on this program before, and you need to hear from him. Yes, we have Mr. Richard Thompson, Acting Director General for ODPEM. Good afternoon, my brother. How are you this afternoon?
Good afternoon, Sir Darby. I am good. I am good.
I
And good
wonder
afternoon
if,
to you and your viewers and your listeners.
right, I wonder if we have called on you too early, because I gather.
It's never too early. It's never too early to get the disaster risk management information because remember we deal with multiple hazards in Jamaica. So it's not
Yes.
only hurricanes because the season is coming shortly,
Hmm.
starting on the 1st of June, but there are other hazards that do impact us from time to time, and weather systems that impact us outside of the hurricane season.
There's one right now, I gather.
Yes, there is a trough that
Mhm.
is impacting us, bringing, I think, well-needed rainfall. There have not been
Yes,
any
yes.
major reports of flooding, which we are happy for, but we need the rainfall to kind of interrupt the drought,
Yes.
and to reduce the heat effect as well, because heat is one of those things that impact us,
Man, you can
especially in the
say that
summertime.
again. It's getting
Yes,
hot.
yes, man, it's getting hot, and we are now seeing more prevalent impact from the sub-Saharan dust that passes over the Caribbean in the summertime that increases our temperature between probably 2 to 3 degrees, which is a 1 degree increase in temperature sometimes is significant.
Yes.
And when something you're looking at 3 degrees increase, it's very
Hmm.
significant for us,
Hmm.
and sometimes given the kind of building system that we have, we tend to have a lot of our housing development, especially those affordable housing unit, tend to have slab roofs, which kind of impact
I'm
us in
sure you
terms of
made a
heat as
mistake a
well.
while ago, you know.
Which one?
You said affordable.
Well,
It's the-
that's based on my government partners
yes,
definition,
yes. I
from the
understand. I was
Ministry of
making some trouble.
from the National Housing Trust.
You know I love to make trouble. Listen up. I don't know if you're aware, but and if I mentioned it before, there's the Doppler radar system, which I gather is very important in terms of picking up when you have local weather challenges.
Yes.
My understanding is that it has not been operational for a very long time. And this has to do with the vendors and having them fix it. But it's a long time. So I don't know if you are aware if it is now in operations, or if you're not,
Well,
because
I
of
know
radio.
that the Met Office was doing extensive work and engagement to have that sorted out.
Yes.
Where they are now, I would have to do a follow-up with my namesake, Evan Thompson, who heads that division. But I know that
Right.
they have been doing extensive work
Hmm.
in terms of being able to provide the forecast locally. And I think we always have to give the Met Service credit for the work that they have been doing, and the kind of interaction that they have been having, not only at the local forecasting side, but
Right.
also the interaction as well with the National Hurricane Center and the
Hmm.
the wider World Meteorological Organization. I know Evan chairs one of those large World Meteorological agent organization, and so we are a significant player in the region and globally as it relates to meteorological forecasting.
And if my memory
All
serves
that
me
up to,
right, I'm sure he occupies a position at the in one of those international weather organization.
yes, he chairs one of the UN apparatus on world meteorology. So I
But
always
if
have
we
to big
haven't
up.
heard, I just found that out by accident. But that's a big thing. We haven't heard much about that one.
Yes, I mean
That's
he's
interesting.
always a main player, and always having those engagement in terms of the wider meteorological activities globally.
Yes.
And we have been doing some work as well, looking at how we move now to impact part of the UN global agenda around
Yes.
early warning systems for all,
Hmm.
which is one of the baby, so to speak, of the UN Secretary General.
Right.
to ensure that no one is left behind when it comes to early warning. And
Mm-hmm.
so Jamaica has been pushing now and trying to extend our agenda around early warning system for all. We have been doing significant work over the years as it relates to early warning, but we're
Mm-hmm.
kind of upping the ante now as it relates to early warning system. And the meteorological service is pushing that, and the
Mm-hmm.
ODPEM and the Med Service is trying to ensure that we have broader early warning system across the country. So that's where we are going. So I always have to give credit and big
Right.
ups to the Met Service.
One thing I must tell you, I get the impression because even when I put out information about the weather, Jamaicans
Yes,
do listen. So that is one thing we can say. They might not listen to other things. I don't know why, but when it comes to weather matters and so on, they do. They panic when it comes to earthquake because that comes with no warning.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. So we are very good on the weather related side of things in
Right,
terms
right.
of giving the forecasting. If it's your as it relates to heat, whether we're going into early
Mhm.
drought, so there is drought forecasting. There's aspect of any kind of situation that is impacting us, whether we have
Mhm.
in a low pressure system, a trough, whether they're going to bring
They
rainfall.
tell us whether it's a El
Um,
Nino or La Nino.
yes,
I just know it
and
sounds Spanish
also
and English. I don't I haven't heard the difference. Yeah. Mm.
and also the kind of work and the kind of product that is produced from the Met
Yes.
Service for our fisher folk. You
Ah,
know,
that's important.
yeah, that is
But
very, very
since as you
important.
mentioned that, probably should spend a little. I was going to go next on to how prepared are we. Funny enough, I think they look at ODPEM to see how prepared ODPEM is. But I say,
Yes.
listen, whether ODPEM is prepared or not, are we prepared? But you mentioned about the fisher folks, and I'm very concerned. Up to recently, I think good work by the JDF. They just found some at sea, two of them, I think, at sea recently.
Mhm.
To what extent, well, to what extent are fisher folks prepared generally, whether they have weather conditions or not? Are they taking the precautions? Do they have radios on them?
Yes, they do, and
Yeah.
they do listen to the advisory.
Yes.
It has been getting better where
Mhm.
persons pay critical attention. So
Right.
they use the products of the Met Service. I know Dr. Bellamy and the Fisheries Authority have been doing
Right.
extensive work as well to ensure that they are equipped with communication.
Mhm.
And then that those communication as well go into the marine channels, which is
Right.
the
And they have a
Jamaica.
WhatsApp, and they have a WhatsApp channel that
Yeah,
they can monitor. Mhm.
and the JDF Coast Guard as well is
Yes.
integral to that process because they patrol our maritime space,
Right.
and any kind of maritime search and
Mhm.
rescue operation would have to be conducted by the JDF Coast Guard and supported by the Air Wing, which is now under one brigade, which is the MAC brigade, which is the Maritime Air and Cyber Command Brigade.
Okay.
So they do extensive coastal patrol and
Mhm.
also ensure that as best as possible that our fisher folk they are getting the information, and if they are having any kind of difficulty then they are also assisted
Mhm.
by the maritime and air and cyber command brigade. So
Let's look at.
it's a
Yeah.
closely knitted and
Mhm.
interlinkages that we operate on.
Right.
So our national disaster risk management apparatus is very
Mhm.
sound in terms of the systems and the procedures that we employ from time to time to ensure that we're as best as possible we are protecting our people.
Let's look at ourselves and the nation, our communication systems, electricity. Well, there was a press release set out by, for example, JPS called that they will be working on their infrastructure so that it
Yes.
could withstand a certain level hurricane. But let's look at communication, for example. To what extent the amateur radio operators are still involved, just in case the internet fails and
Yeah, man. So
or other
they're still
communication?
involved. They are
Mhm.
still involved. We have a grouping that we have trained up over the years, and we continue to do training with them and continue to engage them in terms of the amateur the AM radio operators. And so we have a group in which is called EARS, Emergency Amateur Radio Operators, that is part of the system to look at if they are to provide that component for redundancy.
And I must help all listeners to understand that when all fails, they are able to even communicate internationally with their system.
Yes, yes, yes. So we have them as a part of the overall national communication apparatus. Because anything that we are doing, we have to ensure that redundancy plays a critical role in that. You have to have redundant communication all the time, because without communication in times of emergency, you're operating in the dark.
The question I might ask is, do we have enough amateur radio operators? We used to have CB radios before. That has sort of, I think that has died. And it seems to me that we need more amateur operators right across the country. I know it's a very expensive hobby. Therefore, I wonder to what extent they cover the whole island.
So yes, it is an expensive hobby. It's a kind of a dying communication art, so to speak. But on our side, we have always tried to ensure that we have a database, so to speak, of those radio communicators, and try to ensure that we keep them as a part of the system. It's really, as you say, an expensive hobby. And many years ago, that was the mainstay, but a lot of persons have gone more into digital radio communication. But it is critical, and you do still have persons that are a part of the process. So we have a lot of persons like Mr. Finicky and all those persons that still operate on the ham radio side, to help us to form that kind of redundancy that we need.
The good thing about them is that the ability to transmit long range. The digital is not as flexible as far as I know. I'm not technically equipped to speak it, but it's my understanding. Cellular phones, for example, sites can go down. And we have had problems with the internet going down. So it would seem to me that we need to still put emphasis on the amateur radio operators.
Yes, yes. So we are maintaining that. That's not something that we're letting go anytime soon, because we do understand how important it is to have redundancy in our communication system.
Now the people, we complain, ODPEM is not ready, JPS is not ready, but from your checks, and if you have done this sort of research, what are we ready?
Well, ready is relative. We have very sound systems, and
I'm talking about I'm talking about the people.
Because
yes, from your checks out there, I don't know if you have done any research, to what extent are we ready in terms of our infrastructure, in terms of people, in terms of institutions?
Well, I know on the institution side, if we want to name them across the landscape, not only those that are readily involved in the risk management arena, and most of them are readily involved in the risk management arena if you really look at it, because if you look at on the side of our religious grouping, we have had major
Sorry to interrupt you there, but we got over the time, so we're going to have to take a break and get back to you. Come back on. Talking to Mr. Richard Thompson, the acting director general for ODPEM. I'm Vernon Darby. This is Spot On, so come back. Don't move. Welcome back. You're listening to Spot On with Vernon Darby, coming to you live from Kingston, Jamaica. Still trying to get back our guest for Be My Guest. So you continue to stay with us as we try to get back our guest. And he was talking about being prepared. We have the hurricane season just around the corner, and therefore we have to make sure we get ourselves prepared. For example, we need to cut back those trees. And let me just to remind you that if you have a tree which is close to the JPSCO pole, I have been saying this for years, and JPSCO keeps on repeating that if you have a pole which is close to, and when I say close, or 3-4 feet, as a matter of fact, the moment it just I would say next to it, I'd say even 5 yards, because in trying to cut that tree, a branch might fall on the JPSCO wire. If you are on that tree, you never can tell you could become electrocuted. So therefore, you should keep your trees trimmed and make sure your trees do not grow near to JPS lines. As a matter of fact, I think recently we lost a police officer. And over the years, well, a number of persons have lost their lives trying to cut back trees. I had one close to me and I warned him, yeah, some years ago, I warned him, I says, do not cut that tree. And he says, okay. Well, I got a call while I was on air too, telling me that there was a loud explosion in the neighborhood, only to find out that, yes, the tree um, while we was cutting the tree, it touched the wires, and guess what? He was very lucky he survived. All right, our guest is now back with us, Mr. Richard Thompson, the Acting Director General for ODPEM. Yes, sir, we're talking about the people. And that's why you're here, to make sure we get ready.
I just heard you mention something about someone getting entangled now. Like what?
It happens all well, my brother. I talk
Yeah,
about it until I'm tired.
so part of the preparation
Yes,
persons normally employ is pruning of trees.
yes,
And it's something that we have been saying for years, and you are always hearing our light and power partners saying it
yes.
all the time in their advertisement, that if you have any trees that grow and comes in contact with the power lines, that you are not supposed to trim them yourselves. You're actually is to reach out to the JPS,
And they'll cut the
provide
power.
them with the information, and for
Mhm.
them to come and do that for you.
No,
So
actually, I
far
don't
too
know if
many
they'll just
times,
do it like that. Let me just correct it. I'm almost sure what they'll do, they'll cut the power. Because if the tree is on your compound, you have responsibility. And that is why
yes.
it's very important for people to cut back those trees on their properties. Now, JPS will do the one on the sidewalks.
And that's on the side, yes.
Right, right.
But even if it's on your property, you still need to reach out to the JPS to get the necessary guidance
Right,
in
right.
terms of the approach, because far too many times persons try to do it themselves and they get killed. And we don't want that. One life is always lost is always one too many.
Exactly.
And that's something that we try to ensure that from a preparation standpoint,
Mhm.
we are covering that. So pruning, proper and secure pruning of your trees, ensure that you are doing your checks for your roofing systems, doing retrofitting.
Huh?
We have been,
Hold on. I wonder if you know what they call chichi.
yeah,
I have
man.
seen I saw a beautiful house recently, and I don't think they are aware of it. I told them subsequently, and let me tell you something. The chichis decided that this house looked too pretty, man. We need to go take a residence in it. And I just saw one little streak on the wall outside, and
Yes.
that's an indication. And they love the roof. That's where I have the wood, and especially if you didn't use treated lumber.
If you don't use treated lumber, and that's
Yes,
why that's why we're always saying to persons within your wider preparation, get proper artisans to do your work. Don't cut corners because
shortcut,
yeah, shortcut.
draw
You hear the
blood,
say,
long cut, draw sweat.
yeah, man.
Hmm.
So we always say to persons, get proper artisans, ensure that your lumbers are treated, ensure that you're using hurricane straps. We have been
Right.
preaching that again, constantly since burial. For hurricane burial to say persons, use your hurricane straps. Get your roofers to put in your hurricane
Some
straps.
of us we have a hearing problem,
Yeah,
We don't hear. And I'm talking about those who have hearing challenges. Those of us
yeah,
who
man.
have two
I know.
ears and we can't hear. Those of
Yeah,
us who have
man.
2 ears and we can't hear, we really deaf for true. Because the other
Yes, that's
people,
true.
they have a hearing challenge. But let me tell you something. Nothing will miss them people at all. No, no.
Exactly. And in terms of the national preparation as well, the
Yes,
Jamaica Association for Persons with Disabilities work closely with the ODPEM to ensure that we are providing the necessary information as well for
yes.
that very vulnerable grouping and that
Hmm.
grouping that we should be ensure
Yes.
not only as operatives of the state but as just citizens of the country
Hmm.
that we are taking care of them.
Hmm.
Persons with disabilities, the elderly, children, women, or our most vulnerable population.
Hmm.
That we are doing the necessary that we have to do as collectively as a society. to ensure that we are looking out for those persons and that we're taking care of them.
Another area I'd love you to look at, I find that very few people know much about first aid. And I
Yes.
wanted to what extent, I believe that every single community across this country should have a number of persons who are trained. Basically, if you have an accident, somebody just catch it 2 foot, somebody catch it two-handed, and just fling you from one place to the other. It's amazing, and I'm sure quite a number of our persons suffer more injury because of the way they are handled. To what extent are we working to have, I think every single community should have somebody who is equipped to communicate, have gadgets that can communicate, and also persons who are equipped in first aid and have like a little, whatever, what they call it, that can transport people. Every single area
Yeah,
should have
the
that.
gurneys, yes. So we have a lot of communities that are trained in first aid. A lot of the personnel are trained in first aid. We have what is called community emergency response teams. And within those community emergency response teams, we provide basic training, basic disaster management, basic firefighting, search and rescue, and first aid. We work very, very closely with the Jamaica Red Cross. The Jamaica Red Cross and the ODPEM is one of those two of those entities that are twinned at the hips.
Yes,
We have a number of twins in Jamaica, like the Jamaica Fire Brigade, JDF Police,
yes.
and Red Cross is one of those. Red
Oh,
Cross is
yes.
auxiliary support to government,
And if
and they have
Loy is still there at the, I think it's Red Cross.
yes, man, she's still a part of the whole setup, and
Yes.
and Miss Clark has been a
Miss
long
Clark too,
standing
man.
member.
You say I know
Yeah,
all these people. Oh,
yeah,
yes.
man, she's a legend of the system.
Legend, I know, I
She's a
know.
legend of the system,
Mhm.
and where they provide those first aid type training
Yes,
to communities. But you are correct that we should be doing more in terms of when I said we, not only the ODPEM, but generally as a society, to
yes.
ensure that persons are trained in especially in basic first aid.
I think
Because
in schools, for example, it should be a part,
yes,
we're training the youngsters to learn the physics and the chemistry and the mathematics, but a simple thing of being able to carry a certain first aid or be a first responder, that's one of the things we
mhm,
should be teaching our young people
mhm.
in all the
And it's true, and
schools.
in schools, if you're not a part of the Jamaica Combined Cadet Force or you're a part of the Girl Guide Association, a lot of these things are not taught to students.
And it should be.
And it should. And because
Yes.
and I know there's a school of thought out there that we have become an uncaring society. I hardly see
You call
that
it a
because
school, I
anything
call it
happen.
a whole university. I want to believe that is we have become a very uncaring society.
Yeah,
We
but
have.
we have changed
Well,
a
the
little, but
world, if you ask me.
yeah, we have changed a little. But if something happened to someone on the streets, you're
Yes.
going to get persons are going to run to your aid. And a lot of the times with that them being overzealous in providing assistance
Ah,
and
yes,
not having the training,
not having
yeah,
the
sometimes it
training
work out um,
or
on the more negative
catastrophic.
side because that you're
Yes.
not trained how to lift, you are not trained what to do to someone if they have an head injury. So it's something that,
Or
as a
back
society,
injury.
yes, we have to pay a little bit more attention to ensure that as best as possible, a lot of our personnel are trained in basic first aid. So
Mhm.
it's something that is essential, and we ensure that on our side that our first responders and persons that are a part of the disaster management setup in Jamaica
Right.
have basic first aid training as part of their requirements.
You know,
And then at the higher level now, there is the Ministry
mm,
of Health that provides that national service, and then the Jamaica Fire Brigade now, which have an emergency medical team that is a part of their operational activity, day-to-day operational activity. You know, they have that as a part of their setup as well. And they are continuously trying to build that out to ensure that we can support the entire country as it
I
relates to
tell you something,
emergency medical
yeah.
services.
Sometimes they talk about when you go to school, what they call it, they used to talk about reading, writing, and arithmetic.
Yeah.
And arithmetic. Um, no, I'm going to be very awful, and I'm sure many persons will disagree with me. You can read till judgment come. That alone can save your life. You can add
True.
2 plus 2 till judgment come. That alone can save life. Those I said, that alone.
Yes.
But if you train somebody in basic first aid, they probably can't read, They
Mm-hmm.
probably can add 2 plus 2.
Yeah, but
They probably can't
application.
write. But
Yeah.
if they can do something practically and help, the point
Yes.
I'm trying to make, we spend time teaching these children academic things and so on, and a basic thing such as saving your own life and saving somebody else's life. As far as I know, I hear they're coming back with civics now. As far as I know, I might be wrong. That is not being taught to all students in our school to
No,
save your
it is not.
own
It is not.
life. It's amazing. What we are training them to do is to go and work for somebody and to be a
Yes.
good worker, but to take care of themselves. We are missing out. So I'm going to ask you to help me to lobby for that.
Yes, man. We will continue. We will
Yes.
continue to push that kind of community engagement as it relates to our emergency
Right.
teams in communities and the kind of training that they have. And as I said, first aid is a
Mm.
main part of that, and we continue to ensure that working along with St. John's Ambulance, Jamaica Red Cross, Jamaica Fire Brigade, and the Ministry of Health, that we continue to push that in our communities.
So when you get these big exams, this one is six, yeah, what have you? 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 10
Mhm.
subjects. But yet, if somebody's life is at risk, you don't know what to do. Come on, that can't
Yes.
work. I'd love to see the day when first aid is part of your school leaving certificate. It's required and it's noted that you have done it. I know that you have to have retraining every now and again.
Yes, yeah, we do
Yeah,
recertification
right.
ever so often because it's a requirement.
It's
It's
a
an international
requirement.
requirement if you're a first aider
Mhm.
that you
Guess
keep
what?
abreast.
I'm in trouble if I go for the break. So
All right, no
I
problem.
tell you what, any final point that we have to, so any final point you want to make before you
Well,
leave
just to
us?
say that we continue to ask the public to, continue to look out for your neighbors. For the neighbor is the first person who will come to your aid in times of trouble, in times of disasters, and you should be the first person to go to your neighbor's aid in times of trouble and in times of disasters. So you look out for your neighbors, pay attention to the information constantly coming out of the ODPEM, the Met Service, and
Yes,
all the other players in the National Disaster Management setup. And as we go into the hurricane season, for persons to continue to apply what we keep saying to them over the years in terms of their hurricane preparedness
yes,
activities, and to ensure that we go throughout the year, throughout the hurricane season, relatively safe
right.
in terms of based on our preparation.
Yes.
We know
Have
that
to go
nature
now.
is,
Yeah.
yeah, man. We know that
Yes.
nature is difficult to predict, but we have to
Right.
do what on our side to ensure that we are preparing for the eventualities.
And that time I tell you about the story about the neighbor who couldn't stand his neighbor next door. So he built a very high wall so they couldn't see one another. So when the trouble come, the neighbor couldn't see. Too late. Mercy gone. Take care, my friend.
Well,
Have a
well, don't wall
wonderful
out
day.
the neighbors.
Sometimes if your enemy can help you. Take care, Mr. Richard
Right,
Thompson,
Richard
the
Darby. Thanks for
acting
having me.
director of
Thanks
ODPEM.
for
It
having
was
me.
great having you.